And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic here for Friday morning. IFR, northern Bering Sea, up through the Strait there into the Chukchi Sea, and then up along the Arctic coast. Marginal VFR across the north slope down into the Koyukuk-Kobuk Valley here on out toward Selawik-Kotzebue. And much of the Seward Peninsula, marginal VFR here, southwest coast, Bristol Bay, coming back around from Kodiak Island on up into the Kenai Peninsula, and also some marginal conditions in the interior. IFR here from the Alaska Peninsula all the way out to the far western Aleutians. Marginal VFR from the Gulf of Alaska in along the western panhandle. And that burns back in the afternoon to good VFR here for the southeast coast. Also for the North Gulf Coast, a little bit of marginal VFR lingering into the afternoon there for the northern Prince William Sound area. Otherwise, marginal VFR here along and north of the Alaska Range over the eastern interior, becoming more widespread up over the Brooks Range North Slope area. A little bit IFR out over the eastern Arctic coast, as well as the northwest coast here, with the bulk of the IFR out over the Chukchi Sea. But that'll extend down towards Shishmaref and the northern Seward Peninsula. Then some more IFR here over the northern Bering Sea that slides on down into the Alaska Peninsula. And yet another batch there over the southern Bering and the Aleutians. And then for Saturday morning, that two areas just become one huge area of IFR here for the Bering Sea. About Nikolsky westward, northward there, right up to the Bering Strait. And marginal VFR for the northwest coast and the north slope on out toward the Arctic coast, becoming IFR there. Good VFR here in the interior with some marginal VFR on the east side down into the eastern Copper River Basin. But as you can see, the Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island, all the southern interior to the Kuskokwim Valley, actually out to the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, good VFR. VFR northern panhandle, a little bit IFR slipping up from Dixon entrance in toward Heidelberg. And then for the Saturday afternoon time frame, we're looking at IFR mostly off the coast of the Panhandle, except for possibly Prince of Wales Island there, with some marginal VFR as well as areas of VFR in the inside waters. And then some marginal VFR here on the east side, otherwise good VFR, Kodiak Island, Kenai Peninsula, right on up to the central Arctic coast. And then out along the west coast, some marginal VFR there with some IFR right through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island, marginal VFR for Nunivak Island, and then it looks like IFR here, Unmak Island, westward to Shimianatu. And from there, taking a look at passes for tomorrow, we've got marginal VFR in the forecast for Anatuvik and Adigan, and Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR in the forecast. Occasional marginal conditions for rainy and windy. And Isabel going VFR at this point in time. Looks VFR also for Mentasta. And for Tanita, marginal VFR conditions at times, VFR at other times. And for Portage, marginal VFR most of the day. Chilkoot White starting out marginal VFR, becoming VFR later in the morning through the afternoon. Freezing levels here, we've got cold shot coming across the north slope and eastern Arctic coast and about 2,000 feet up there, maybe a little less. And then here extending southward 4,000 feet right on down in toward the lower Yukon River and Delta area. Then sliding back up to 10 to 12,000 feet right over the Alaska Peninsula. And it looks like tomorrow morning, 32 degrees should occur at about 8,000 feet near Yakutat, and about the same down the southeast coast. And from there, looking at icing, the disturbance up here cutting eastward across the Arctic coast could be some considerable moderate rime icing up in that area. And then another likely area would be down here along and over the southeast coast. So moving on from there to the jet stream at 33,000 feet. It's an elongated trough here from northwest to southeast with 1 week upper low there near the Kenai Peninsula. South wind 65 knots over the central and eastern part of the state on up to the north there. But behind the trough here, we still have these, we're looking at two separate jets, Arctic jet here coming down out of the Russian Far East. About 100 knots there, diminishing here as it links up with the Pacific jet here, but that acts to push it a little farther to the south. That effectively cuts off any big moisture supply coming up from the Pacific. But westerlies at about 95 knots there across the central Aleutians. 9,000 feet, weak low off the Queen Charlotte Islands. And another one here right over the Susitna Valley, and yet a third one up there over the North Slope. So to the west of that, northwest flow here across the Bering Sea at about 30 knots or so, maybe 35 knots for the Alaska Peninsula. And then lighter conditions out here to the west, 9,000 feet, even pretty light winds, maybe 25 knots here across the Alaska Peninsula and through the Kamishak Gap there into the Barren Islands, maybe 25, possibly 30 knots there. And north 25 on the backside of this weak system over the northern Koyukuk Valley. Pretty light winds out here over the Bering Sea, and 25 to 40 knot winds here, staying mostly south of the Alaska, or of the eastern, or the Panhandle. Could be close enough there for Prince of Wales Island. Could see some isolated moderate turbulence there for smaller aircraft. Same thing here, mechanical turbulence possible on the light to isolated moderate side for the eastern Alaska range, but with northwest winds, some heavier mechanical turbulence here. Considerable moderate possible, southern Cook Inlet, Homer down to Helsodovia, Kodiak Island, of course Kamishak Bay and the Barrens, and along the Alaska Peninsula.